Hi everyone, I'm Katie Brackett Fialka, your host, and welcome back to the Civil War Monitors Behind the Lines. Today I'm talking with Mike Gorman, who is a historian and park ranger at Richmond National Battlefield Park. He's going to talk to us today a little bit about some of the myths of Cold Harbor, the infamous bloody battle that occurred in the summer of 1864. So take it away, Mike.
Hi, Katie. For those of you that don't know, Katie's one of our alumni. She used to work for us and did a fantastic job. We were just arguing about this. It was nearly 5 years ago. But having done this now for many years, I find that the Cold Harbor is probably one of the most mythologized battles that there is, and it's really telling when people come in. You know, some of the baggage that they bring with them about Cold Harbor. You hear it all the time. I think it's a fantastic interpretive opportunity when you're out there, not just to myth bust, because that's easy, and it's my story versus your story, and it gets really annoying, but really to make people kind of appreciate the narratives that we carry around with us, the baggage that and how that gets created. And for Cold Harbor, it's really illustrative of a very political story. As you must know, this battle occurs from the end of May 1864 almost to the second week of June. And this is an election summer, so everything it's just like now. It's just an exciting time, and everybody's looking at every event as indicative of their political truth. And in this case, you've got to know that the Confederates are very interested, and so are the Democrats in the North, in tarring and feathering Lincoln through Grant. So he's under a microscope. And this campaign that he's launched, that we call the Overland Campaign, is like nothing that's ever happened before. It's constant, on the offensive, never stopping, relentless driving at the Confederates with the intent every time that they encounter them to make this the final battle. Well, so bodies are getting stacked. Surprise, surprise. Lee's been doing that for the past 2 years, but nobody's really complained about that in the South. But now all of a sudden, because this is happening suddenly in the North, it's an election year, everything is now coming under intense scrutiny. And that goes a long way to understanding why this acquires some of that baggage. But when you get down on the ground and you really look at what happened, a lot of this is unearned. Let's take the first one, which is Grant the Butcher. This is a contemporary thing. It is. I mean, we can see this when we read Democratic newspapers, and even Mary Lincoln was using this term at one point. We can see that in a response to the staggering amount of casualties that come when you launch and maintain a sustained offensive. That's what the Confederates had been experiencing with Lee as their commander from June of 1862 onward. But victories had attended these offensives. So all of a sudden now you're looking at a time where Grant's coming in and he's saying, I'm going to continue attacking and attacking and attacking until we win. But it's not happening as quick as everybody would like. And everybody's starting to sweat that we're getting closer to the election. And so, of course, now this is taking on this superlative nature. The casualties were fantastic. You've got 20,000 casualties in 2 days at the Wilderness, right? Nearly the same number in 2 weeks at Spotsylvania. This is before they even got to Cold Harbor.
Yeah.
But look where they've gotten now. They're right outside of Richmond. I mean, right outside. If you got in your historical helicopter and hovered over the battlefield of Cold Harbor, you'd see that the Confederate Army is within 10 miles of Richmond with their back to the Chickahominy River. To call the Chickahominy River a river is an insult to rivers. It's a mile-wide swamp. So you've got the Confederates backed up to a swamp, and behind that is their capital city. Why wouldn't you attack? You've got your enemy right where you want them. This is going to be the last battle. And every time at Cold Harbor, or near Cold Harbor, that they had fought the Confederates, it had been a victory.
Yeah.
And so everything that Grant is seeing is pointing to victory. So this idea that he's just pouring men into this meat grinder for just numbers purposes, I hear that too. You get a little of that. By this time it's just attrition. Mm-hmm. They're trying to win the war today, not 3 months from now, not next year, today. Mm-hmm. And I don't think there was ever a better military situation that presented itself to the Union Army than what Grant and Meade found at Cold Harbor. Mm-hmm. Then we come to the other issue of this staggering number of casualties in this amazingly compressed amount of time.
Yes.
That that is one of those things that just because it's published, you can be on strong and solid historical ground by merely citing the original sources, or even Shelby Foote, who repeated it, or Bruce Catton actually was the first to sort of take aim at it.
Mm-hmm.
But until then, it was just true, right? It had been repeated so many times that it's just true. Well, when you start really understanding the battle, that's just not true. One of the most important things to understand about the battle is that the army that arrives at Cold Harbor, though it has the best opportunity to win on paper, is a shadow of its former self. There's good reason that when the armies would traditionally fight, they would fall back and regroup after the battle, because you have to fill the first sergeant's gone, the captain, the lieutenant. Okay, sergeant, you're now the first sergeant. Okay, corporal, you're now the sergeant. Everybody's moving up. Everybody's doing a new job all of a sudden, and this is happening every day. Every day, there is more battle. There's more casualties. There's more death, and psychologically, physically, morally, they're spent. There's nothing there, and this is from the commanders on down. So when the orders go out for all the Union Army to attack at 4:30 in the morning on June 3rd, being generous here, of the 5 Union Corps that were ordered to do that, only about 2.5 corps did. So this idea that we have of this coordinated and solid blue line going forward as one, as they were expected to do, this should have been the largest charge of the war, is just wrong. It just did not happen that way. It's very piecemeal. It's very, here and they fall back, and then another group goes forward and they get drilled and fall back. And others, veterans, are looking at this going, I'm not going forward. And so those men that do go forward, the ones that, the few that actually are up and fed and moving forward at 4:30 in the morning, sure, they suffer spectacular casualties. You still got attacks beginning in the afternoon on June 3rd. That shows you how uncoordinated this is. It just didn't happen that way. And the best historian of this battle, Gordon Ray, has estimated that all day on June 3rd, it was closer to 3,500 casualties all day, 24 hours there. Contrast that with, say, Gaines's Mill from 2 years prior, when there is a coordinated assault on the part of Lee, where you have about 15,000 combined casualties in 6 hours. Which one is the bloodbath here? No doubt about it. It's going to be Gaines's Mill. But it just goes to show you the lengths to which we go to tar and feather Grant, because we know he lost. If Grant had been successful, Meade had been successful at Cold Harbor, everybody would stand and cheer for the brilliance of this all going according to plan and finally cracking the Confederate line, coming when it did during election summer, and coming so hot on the heels of the Wilderness and Spotsylvania. It acquires this superlative, the bloodiest, the most, the worst, you name it. But I think when we do that, we're really rushing too hard to create a narrative that does disservice to the people that were actually there, that actually did fight. We talk about, is this the spot where 7,000 men die in 30 minutes? Just think about that. How would that even have occurred? How could you pull the trigger fast enough? And if you're going to call Grant a butcher, then I want to hear the same thing about Patton. I want to hear the same thing about Bradley and Eisenhower. Then you also better criticize Lee. That's his hallmark. If Lee had 20 options and one of them was to attack, that's what he's going to do. In Grant's case, he's looking at this as, well, Lee's been doing that to us. Let's do it to him. And again, it just shows you how, if it were Lee in the driver's seat, the narrative would be slightly different. When it's Grant in the driver's seat, he's a butcher.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Mike, for talking to us a little bit and illuminating some of these myths for us. If you want to learn more about Civil War Richmond, you can check out Mike's website. It's mdgorman.com. That's GORMAN. And if you want to learn more about Richmond National Battlefield Park, they also have a website you can check out. And they're also active on Facebook. So thanks again for talking to us, Mike.
So great to see you, Katie.